Hi, today we're gonna be making this card over here. It's Valentine's Day themed, it's fun. We're gonna be cutting out some hearts and using it to make a larger heart. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so what you're gonna need for this card is a piece of printer paper. I've already folded this piece of printer paper into quarters, so that's why it looks like that. But this is my piece of printer paper. You're gonna need a ruler to do some measurements. You're gonna need a pencil to help with those measurements. Some safety scissors, a glue stick, a black marker to do some outlining, and a piece of construction paper. If you don't have construction paper for your hearts, you can use a piece of printer paper and just color it in. You can also just use a piece of printer paper because what we're gonna do is we're gonna outline the hearts anyway with black marker, so it doesn't necessarily have to be colored. So that's that. So the first thing that we're gonna do, as with a lot of my cards, is we're just gonna fold the piece of paper in half. We're gonna fold it again in half, so you now have this kind of card base. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my construction paper. The way that I like to make hearts is I like to make a little measurement for a strip of paper. It's a very approximate measurement, but I'm gonna do a 1.25 inch mark on the bottom of my paper. I'm gonna do the same 1.25 inch mark near the top of my paper. I am going to then make a little cut or a little strip that will tell me where I'll make my cut. And of course, this side isn't straight. It does not matter for your hearts, luckily. So now I have this strip. What I like to do, I'll cut off the top. So now I have this straight sort of rectangle, is I like to fold my paper in half. So what now I have is kind of this half folded paper that I can use to make hearts. So I'm gonna make one half of the heart, and then I'm gonna make all different sizes. So big, small, smaller, big again. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut right along these lines. So now I have this heart. And the thing with this heart card is that it doesn't really matter what the size of your hearts are. So you can make them all different sizes. You can make them all the same size. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna come together at the end and we're gonna just tape them onto, or glue them onto the card. So here I have a bunch of little hearts that I'm eventually gonna glue onto here. What I also love about this method of making hearts is now I have this strip of paper that I can glue wherever I want to the card. Maybe I want it on the front of the card, maybe I want to glue on the back of the card. For this card, I took my strip of paper and I glued it right in the middle, and I did some more outlining. So that's why I also like to use this method. So you can make as many hearts as you want, as few hearts as you want, and just make them as big as you want. But I'm gonna be making a couple more hearts, and then I'll show you at the end how we're gonna assemble them. Okay, so now we're back. I have this pile of cards. what I'm gonna do is then I'm gonna trace out a heart that I'm gonna use for this card. I think what's best is to kind of draw a heart freehand on your paper. It doesn't have to be super symmetrical. It doesn't have to look perfect. It just has to look like a heart. And then what I'm gonna do is, this heart is rather small, but I'm gonna place the hearts around this heart so that it eventually fills up the whole heart. So the way that I like to do that is I like to kind of have my bigger hearts towards the middle of the paper and then smaller hearts towards the ends of the heart. So I'm just gonna start figuring out some sort of thing that could look good. And I think the trick for this card is that it just doesn't have to look perfect. And I think that's what makes the hearts look even better, if I have a smaller heart right next to all the bigger hearts. So what I recommend that you do is that you just kind of play around with, okay, maybe I can place this heart here. Maybe I actually want a bigger one on the bottom. Maybe I want that there. And sometimes you stick to your fingers, but I just recommend playing around, seeing what you think. And so once you're done kind of figuring out an approximate heart shape that you want, I would then go in with my glue stick, kind of transfer my hearts off to the side, and then go in with the glue. What you can do if you want to not forget the rearrangement of your hearts is to take a picture of it and then kind of try to place your hearts directly the way that you did in your picture. What I really like to do, honestly, I think this card is all about going in freehand and figuring out what looks best by doing that. I do like to start at the top of the heart though, just so that layering looks good. A quick word of advice, if you have a little spot but you don't have a heart that matches a size that you will want for that spot, I would just go ahead and cut out a heart that matches that size. So I'm just gluing on my last heart right now. So here is my little heart. Actually, I'm gonna take one more heart, and I'm just gonna glue it right on the bottom. Ooh. Okay. There you go. So it looks a little bit more like heart shape. So I think this looks great, but it's kind of hard to make out the hearts, right? From the larger shape, because everything is the same color. So what I like to do, as I did in this card, is to go in and just outline the hearts. So if you can see what I did here, I didn't trace along the very edge of my heart, I just traced right within my heart. And so I'm gonna do that for all the edges that I see. All right, so there you go. I have that. What I also have is a little bit of my pencil poking out at the top, so I'm just gonna erase that. And I do think that this card is all about trial and error. So if you're not happy with how your heart looks, you can always go in and keep pasting on top and trying to make a more heart-like heart. But that's actually it for this heart card. As I mentioned before, you can take these leftover strips and just put them where you want in your card. But that's it. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode.